Hello, this is Rabbi Sammy Bergman of Beit Midrash Zichron Dov, and this is the second video in a series of 6 videos on Jewish responses to destruction. Today I'd like to talk about the responses of 2 important Jewish leaders who lived at the time of the destruction of the Second Temple. Those are the responses of Yirmiyahu Hanavi and that of Gedaliah ben Achikam. In Parak Lamaches of Yirmiyahu Hanavi has the following message to Tzidkiyahu HaMelech, the final king in the kingdom of Judea. And he says to Tzidkiyahu, don't think that you're going to be able to withstand the attack of Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel and his army. In fact, Jerusalem is going to fall to the Babylonian army. And you have 2 choices. Either surrender to Nebuchadnezzar, surrender to the Babylonians, and then you will live and Jerusalem will survive as well. Or, if you refuse to surrender, then your entire family will be killed and the city will be burnt to the ground. Unfortunately, as we know, Tzidkiyahu HaMelech refuses to heed Yirmiyahu's message, and indeed the temple is destroyed, Jerusalem is burnt to the ground, and his sons are killed in front of Tzidkiyahu HaMelech's eyes. Fast forward just a few months, and in Perek Mem Aleph of Yirmiyahu, we hear the message of Gedaliah ben Achikam. Gedaliah ben Achikam is appointed governor by Nebuchadnezzar. He's appointed as a ruler over the remnant of the Jewish community in Judea. And Gedaliah also tells the Jewish community the following message, which is very similar to Yirmiyahu's. He says, listen, if you are faithful to Nebuchadnezzar, if we don't rebel, if we live in peace, if we serve Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel, things will be good. I'll take care of you. You'll have food. I'll be able to sustain you, and everything will be okay. It's a message that's very similar to that of Yirmiyahu's message, which was in the name of God. However, not all the Jews of the community, not all the leaders in the community heeded the message of Yirmiyahu and that of Gedaliah. We're told in Perek Mem Aleph of Yirmiyahu that Yishmael ben Netanya, who was a descendant of Melech David, a descendant of the Davidic line, did not want to simply surrender to the Babylonians. He wanted to be king. And so he attacks Gedaliah, he assassinates him, and that is what we commemorate when we fast on Tzom Gedaliah, because that really was the last straw, the last remnant of the Jewish community in Judea was really trampled at that moment. And we have a clash here. On the one hand, we have Yirmiyahu, and we have Gedaliah ben Achikam, who preach the message of accepting the reality of destruction. That at a certain point when God says, that's it, that's the end of your autonomy, I'm destroying the temple, serve Melech Bavel, we have to listen to that. At a certain point, there's a time to mourn. There's a time to accept the judgment of God. It's not time to rebel anymore. It's not time to try to change things. Accept God's judgment. That's their message. And Yishmael ben Netanya and those who followed him refused to heed that message, and because of that, much destruction ensued. I think this is depicted very vividly in what happened immediately after Gedaliah's assassination. Again, in Perek Mem Aleph, right after Gedaliah is assassinated, a few people come to visit Yishmael ben Netanya. And the truth is that he killed them as well. But the Navi depicts them as follows. It says that there were a few men, this is a Perek Mem Aleph Pasuk Hey, a few people came from Shechem, Shiloh, and Shomron, 80 people, and then it says, they had shaved their beards, they had ripped their clothes, and they had wounded themselves. But what were they doing? In their hands they had spices and meal offerings to bring to the house of God. Here we have people who are in mourning, simultaneously mourning for the destruction of the temple, while at the same time bringing offerings to the temple. Could there be a greater confusion to mourn the destruction of the temple while you're still planning on bringing sacrifices? But it really just depicts the confusion of the time. People didn't know, is this it? Do we say okay? Or do we keep fighting? But Hashem said, no, that's it. I made my decision. Your kingdom is over. And I think the takeaway message for us is that although, as we noted in the last video, when we talked about the response of Habakkuk HaNavi, there is a time for calling for change, for crying out to God. There's also a time for acceptance and submission to the will of God, to take the time to mourn, come to grips with reality, and accept what Hashem has decided is our fate. As the Talmud says, Kol mitaba Yerushalayim zochev re'eh b'simchata. Anybody who mourns Jerusalem, they will finally see its happiness. Hopefully, and as these weeks ensue, we'll take a moment to truly appreciate the destruction we've experienced, and in that vein, be able to finally see the ultimate redemption and our ultimate happiness.